Welcome back to my Man United Hub. And second game of the season, second week, and it's not looking good. It's almost a sort of deja vu situation. Familiarity is there in terms of performances that we saw last season. And you have to ask the question, what's really going on? And we'll take a look at in terms of how the game developed and what conclusions can we draw. But what we do know for sure is abysmal failure defending. To let two goals in, the way they conceded those goals is unacceptable at this point in time, at this stage, in terms of what has happened over the last few months, the transfer window, new players being acquired. You have to, and with preseason and getting ready for this season, it's very, very strange that Erik Ten Hag, and I was one to sort of jump out of the starting blocks and put up a video, but I decided to take a little time, look at the highlights from the game, listen to what the coach was saying in his post-match press conference, and it reminded me of some of his press conferences from last season. And I said before in my previous video, it's like, what is he talking about? What game was he watching? Where has he been? He can't be looking at the same performance that we saw as supporters and fans, or as analysts and as pundits and that type of stuff, because a lot of what he said in some of the really, really poor performances last season just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And when I was looking at his press conference after they lost to Brighton, it just reminded me of that. It's like, I don't know what game you were looking at. And, actually, in essence, he was putting the blame elsewhere, as he has often done in the past. I mean, right now, to be honest with you, that performance, losing in that way, is not on anybody, in my opinion, but the coach. Because you can say the new players are coming in, they're being brought into the fold, and they have to have time to acclimatize, but these are top level players. These are guys coming from Bayern Munich and other top teams on the continent, and if you can't get them thinking right in terms of approaching a game, in terms of just basic defending, then it really, the buck stops right there with Erik Ten Hag as the coach. And he can't say that he hasn't been supported by the new partial owners. I think they already set a different tone for transfer windows that we've seen, and they are making moves to help and support the coach. So the question remains in my mind, is Erik Ten Hag good enough to coach Manchester United? I've always said he's not an elite coach. I've always said that he's not in the mold of Pep and Klopp and some of the others, and even some of the new coaches that we've seen over the past few seasons coming in basically cold into some teams and actually achieving a lot. And here is Erik Ten Hag, with the type of support he gets, with the size of Manchester United, arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world, and he is not progressive. This season, minimum is a top 4 position. But right now, that's questionable whether Erik Ten Hag can get his team over the line into a top 4 position to qualify for the Champions League next season. I don't see it. But looking at the game specifically, absolutely unacceptable in terms of defense. What was happening in the back? Okay, so, and this is the difference between the top teams and where Man United is right now. So if City, let's say, has a bad day of Liverpool and they let a goal in, you could pretty much put money on the fact that they're going to come back. They're going to come storming back and win the game, or at least draw it. So we're not there yet. We're a long way off, and things need to happen at the club. And if he loses, as most will predict he will lose against Liverpool next Sunday, and it might be by a lot, he's going to be under a lot of pressure. I personally didn't really want him to stay as coach, and I've said it before, probably a lack of options, and winning the FA Cup final, that bought him a reprieve, and he stayed on the job. But I don't see him as an elite coach. No way, Jose. And as the season progresses, we shall see, in terms of results, what will happen in terms of the management, the partial owners, those who are now in charge of football operations, what kind of decision they're going to make concerning who will be the head coach. I hinted at it in the last video. Perhaps if results go negatively and he is under pressure, they might look to change. I wouldn't be surprised if Van Nistelrooy comes in as interim coach, and possibly, if he does well, gets appointed as the head coach. I don't know. Like I said, I'm speculating, maybe hoping, but it was really a disappointment to see what happened yesterday, because I think a lot of the fans and supporters, seeing the changes that took place in terms of Sir Jim Ratcliffe becoming partial owner, Ineos being in charge of the football side of things, there was a lot of cautious optimism. But I'll guarantee you, like myself, a lot of fans and supporters of Manchester United probably was very apprehensive yesterday. And if it wasn't surprising in terms of the result, the manner in which they lost, it was really sort of very, very disappointing. The defending was abysmal, and something needs to change. And I think Erik Ten Hag needs to really sit down and take stock, look in the mirror, and really find that balance that he needs, because things do have to change. Winning ways have to return. It's not enough to say, well, you had a master class against Manchester City in the FA Cup final. One, credible, or let's say even a super terrific performance to win a trophy doesn't make for a whole season and success for that season. And we saw it last season, because finishing 8th place was the worst finish in the Premier League for United. And they actually had a negative goal difference, first time in the Premier League for them. So we're looking for with interest to see what will happen in the next few weeks and months. And I would suggest that if things continue to slide in terms of dropping points, or even giving up leads and losing games. I mean, this is extra time that they lost this game, when you thought you consolidate and you just button down the hatches. You can't allow the team to come back and to score the winner in extra time. But when we look at the substitutions that Ten Hag made, that's where I'm kind of puzzled. Was he trying to go for a win? I don't understand, because why would you then take off Bruno Fernandes? And then he brings on, and I have a timeline here that, okay, so just after halftime, he brought on Xerxes. In other words, he's saying, okay, let me, we're down, let's see what we can do. And so he's going and looking for an attack and bringing on Xerxes as the focal point. And that was in the 46th minute. But then, and on the 65th minute, he brings in Garnacho, so he's continuing that, and he substitutes Rashford, okay? But, on minute 79, let's call it the 80th minute, he removes Fernandez and brings on Scott McTominay. And then he also brings on De Ligt and takes off Maguire. So that's where I'm puzzled. I mean, why would you bring off Fernandez if you were going for the win? Or were you playing for the draw? So therefore, you put on De Ligt, take off Maguire like for like. You could have actually brought on even Johnny Evans also in addition to just button down the hatches and settle for the point. So it was very confusing because in the 90th minute he brings on Anthony and he takes off Amad Diallo. So it really puzzled me, it confused me, and I would say that he got it all wrong in terms of his substitutions, and I don't know what strategy he was looking for. And even if you bring on defenders, they've got to know their role, especially in extra time. You have to school the players. You know they need to understand what you want from them in all types of situations, a variety of situations. And it seems that for some reason they were all lost. I mean, they were, like nobody seemed to know what they needed to do, especially with set plays, especially let's say from the corner and the ball went out and then it's being crossed in again. You really, it was horrible. It was just ridiculous, and I don't put that on the players. You can't blame the owners, the management. It's on the head coach, in my opinion, and I think that something needs to change. If not right now, but in the next few weeks coming ahead, when they face Liverpool, and I think they go to Tottenham, and if the results are not, if they don't rebound and if they don't respond in some form or fashion that shows that, wait a minute, okay, this is serious business, then I think Sir Jim and Ineos have to kind of consider their options. And I would say that if they have a few bad results going forward in the next month or two, I think, even before the transfer window, something might happen. But we'll have to wait and see because no one can predict. All I know is that I think that Ten Hag really has to stop looking at others and kind of look in the mirror. That's my opinion. Anyway, so thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're joining us, and I look forward to bringing more content and keeping you up to date with what's happening in the weeks and months ahead. Thanks a lot.